Thank you, all of you in the room, for joining us here, and all of you out on the Hell Round. Thank you for being with us. This is part of our Puppets in the Green Mountains International Festival, our 12th biennial festival. We've been pretty much every other year for the last 28 years. So this is a component of our festival. There'll be 3 panels throughout, and this is the first of our exciting panels that have been produced for you today by Mackenzie Doss, Sandglass's managing director. Yeah. Thank you, Mackenzie. And I'm Shoshana Bass. I'm the director of the festival and artistic director of Sandglass Theater. Thank you. And I'm super excited to hear what these amazing artists here have to say today. And we'll be joined for all 3 panels by our amazing youth facilitator, Alex Ather. Alex is a student at the New England Youth Theater, at least that's how we know Alex. Of course, you have many other identities. And so this is really an exciting collaboration for us as well to have you here. As all of you know, there's an entire festival going on, so there are another weekend of performances ahead of us. Welcome, Kaden. There'll be a big gala for fundraiser for Sandglass and honoring the festival and its continuation on Thursday, and then we'll launch into an entire weekend of performances and 2 more panels right here at 118 Elliott. So thank you for having us, Lissa and John. We're really excited to be with you. It takes a community to put on a puppet festival. So you all are part of it. You all online are part of it by extension. So thank you for being here. I don't want to talk too much longer here, apart from thanking HowlRound, thanking Fact TV for helping us make this live stream possible, thanking our live captions for being available to make this as accessible as possible. So that's all I'm going to say for today, and I'm going to turn it over to Alex to introduce our panel. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. I'm 15 years old, and I am a student at New England Youth Theater, where I have been for almost 10 years now. I perform in many different ways, but I'm so excited to be here today to show off these amazing panelists. Vera Longtoe Sheehan, Alice Gottschalk, and Xavier Bobés. So I will tell you that you have a mic for you to introduce yourself and explain your part in the festival.
Okay, hello, my name is Vera. As Alex has already told you, I wear a lot of different hats in the New England community. Just a few of them are as a scholar and educator, an activist, and also as an artist and curator. And I'm a citizen of the Elnu Abenaki tribe. I'm fortunate enough to serve the community as the executive director of the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association, where I work with cultural objects and artwork all the time, either through curating museum exhibits or promoting it and educating the public about it. So that's a nice start, I think. Thank you. I'll pass the invisible mic. Thank you.
I'm Alice Gottschalk from Germany, and I performed yesterday. I'm a puppeteer, I'm a teacher, I'm a puppet builder, I'm a director. And the performance yesterday, I was working with a combination of string puppets and robotics. So I'm interested in the combination of different technologies. I give it the mic.
Thank you. Hello, I am Xavier Bobés. I come from Spain, from Barcelona, and I'm here because we're going to present a show. It's called Things Easily Forgotten with Francesco, who is performing the show, and it's an object theater show that talks about memories in lots of places, but mainly in Spain. in this case. But it has something universal because it talks about families, it talks about mementos, what we have in our pockets, and what happened with them. I've been also having a beautiful workshop with people from here. I'm really happy and really appreciated this opportunity to share with the community here. This experience has been really beautiful.
Thank you so much. All right. So the theme of this panel is going to be objects, writing, and memory. So we have about 3 questions, all surrounding that for our artists to elaborate on and answer. And then we're going to open the floor up for some questions from the audience. So if you have any questions brewing, just write them down mentally, or if you brought paper. So our first question, and most of them are in 2 parts, so you can do that as you will. How do you relate to the objects you work with? And do you feel there is a memory inherent in those objects? Tavi, would you like to start?
Well, I can help. I keep on my life collecting objects that I can find in so many places. And lots of things that have come to my life, it's because I wasn't expecting them. So I've been learning lots of stories from the objects. And this is the way I created things easily forgotten. This is the way I also try to share when I am offering some workshops, that things can get you further than what you are expecting. And actually, it's a kind of gift, because what you can have in your hands belong to somebody that could teach you so many things without having a direct interaction with this person. But that person inherit that knowledge from somebody else. And what I have there in my hands now is an opportunity to pass it to somebody else. So I'm just following the chain, and I can feel it with the objects. They give you this opportunity to belong to a kind of chain of people that really teach to each other in a way very intuitive. And that's what really amazes me. And I really think with objects, because they go from hand to hand, they keep on moving. And this is what we do with them. We just move them around. But what we do with them is living. And living meaning, it means taking decisions and changing our mind and committing mistakes, growing up, being sometimes fair and sometimes not. So I think this is what makes me feel so touched for things, because I really think I have an opportunity, but I think also I must be responsible of that inheritance, because it's valuable, because it belongs to everybody.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Alice?
Well, I would divide in objects I create and objects I find. So when I have objects I create, I put the history inside while I'm creating it through my process. And when I find objects, that's like you said, I inherit some history already. So I would divide this in these 2 parts. And then there's also, if there is a memory inside, I always feel there's an individual memory which I bring, which connects me personally with this object, and then there's a collective memory in the objects, and it differs from every collective you live in. And so again, I see also these 2 when I work with objects.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Vera?
I think I share a lot of the same feelings as the other panelists here, in that there are 2 different components. There are the objects that I work with when I'm curating an exhibit, or when I'm writing an article, or I'm doing a presentation. And those objects are generally historic objects that have also been touched by many people along the way. And they inherently carry a stone language. It's not a written history book, But if you study an object long enough, you learn so much about the people who made it and used it. You can look at the materials, you can look at the way it was processed, the way it was put together. You can smell it and see if it had a certain type of food in it. A while ago, I had the fortune to hold a vintage cradle board. And when you sniffed it, you could tell what it was used for, even though it probably hadn't been used in 80 or 100 years, possibly even more. And I've seen that also with woven pieces that are in museum collections that are made out of plant fiber, and they still have the residual of the berries that they held. And so it tells you something about the people that held it, the people that used it, and the people that made it. And then there's this other piece as a creator and an artist myself, where once again, like you, I also put memory and history into the objects. Also with the belief that many of the materials I work with are natural materials, natural fibers. So also believing that they are alive and they have their own spirit, and sometimes they want to tell you what to do with them versus the artist just saying that you're going to be up whatever it's going to be. So I think it's two parts with objects, artwork, and memory.
Thank you. Right. Question 2. How do you feel humans affect the memory of objects? And how is that memory perceived and preserved through the communities it's a part of? And also, how does this spark the imagination of said communities? Here, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think there, once again, nothing is just a singular one road. If you're going to ask me any questions, we can meander in many different ways. But what I'm thinking about with the object is the memories that live in the community. As an oral historian, I do interviews with many people. And if you talk to an 80 or 90-year-old, you're not just learning their memories, you're also learning their parents' memories and their grandparents' memories. So you could be talking and listening to memories that might be from the 1880s or even longer. A lot of families practice oral tradition, and these memories are passed sometimes with words, but also in those objects. Sometimes somebody will hold an object from their family as they talk to you and they tell you stories from their family. And so those memories are contained in there as a container in the object, but also in their minds as they relay these memories.
Yeah, and I would think they're also in the bodies because we act with the objects, we touch it, it has a certain purpose. So there's always a communication between the objects and us. So it affects our bodies, it brings something to us. And so I think it's, of course, it's in the memory of a collective, how they use objects, how we have them on our bodies or in which use we have it. So, of course, so there is a connection.
Yes, it's quite funny when you meet somebody because there's something between you that you both of you are like in love. Yes, it's like an excuse to talk about something, and then you talk about something else, and then they offer you their house to show you more things. Like I've been doing some shows with a collective in Spain called El Solar, and we have been working in different collectives, like that are been working and living different experiences, and always what they share with you, you can afford it. It's like so much, like it goes much farther than what you were expecting. It's always going somewhere else. For example, we were working in a shop that the owner was the fourth generation of that shop, and he was just showing us all the material that they had for 100 years. And actually the material were bills, most of them. We could see like the chronology of the 100 years of a place that was related to the surroundings, from the village, from everywhere. So I think that sometimes one object is just an excuse. It's just let's see that takes you to another, to another, to another, and people needs to share. I realize so much that we need to learn, and people needs to share things, experiences, and an object can be a nice excuse somehow to interact. Well,
Thank you guys so much. All right, here's our third question. It's a big one. It's a doozy. What happens to the art when the artist has passed on? How does or does not the memory of an object live past the artist? Alice, would you like to start?
Well, we hope, of course, that it will live on, yes. But I think that's how, again, how this art was perceived by the audience and how they connected through the art emotionally. And if they have a connection, a relation through art, it will probably, through this special art, it will go on. But I also think when I look on all older, like we don't know, like the painting on walls, very old painting on walls, we don't know what it was made for. And we didn't know if this were artists or if this was memories. And it leaves a lot of space for interpretation. So whenever we perceive something being interpreted from our point of view in society at this moment, so I would be curious how the future generations perceive my artwork out of their way of view of the world. So we don't know, but it makes me very curious.
well, I think maybe I repeat myself, but what objects offer is an opportunity to keep memories alive. So I don't think it's gonna pass away. It's gonna just generation after generation. They will share these memories, and they will become actually present always. I am just part of the chain, and I don't need to be there all the time. I like, for example, this show I've done, and plenty of years now with Francesco, who's performing it. And I'm just talking this detail, but the things that we are working with, they come from the 40s, the 50s, from Spain. And I'm sure they were being performed at home in a way, sometimes the way that we've been using them. And we are happy that they keep on moving. And I hope these objects, one day, somebody will find them in the street, in a market, like I got them in the flea market, and get curious. I hope so, because it's really sad when things disappear and we lose an opportunity to remember, an opportunity to realize that we are very little and we are just tiny. In a second we can go, no? So I think this is something that, well, I like it.
I think that's very true, and I think it depends on what the history of a particular object or piece of artwork is. Is it something that's handed down from generation to generation of the family, where there is that continuity of the story? Does the artist need to be there to be present in the memory? Maybe, maybe not, because how much art is sold in markets and galleries online today, where the purchaser maybe can read a description of the artwork that's maybe it's just one of those tombstone labels that tells you the materials, the year, the method, and maybe it's a little story that's a paragraph. And what do they take with them? What do they remember that? So one person might purchase it and hand it off and give it as a gift to somebody else who maybe doesn't have that original information. And so that's a puzzle piece that I sometimes work with in my work, where somebody might contact me and say, we have this particular type of object. Recently, somebody contacted me about a basket they had. and they didn't know what to do with it, and they, wanted to try to authenticate it and find out what the whole history and background of that piece was. And sometimes we're just never going to know. Sometimes we can put it together with information from other informants from the region, perhaps history, from history books, from art history books, from town histories, but we're never going to know. But it's still in there. It's contained in there. And hopefully at some point, somebody is interested enough to some kind of unlock that. And people are going to want to keep those things. I know there's this whole secondary, thirdary market for artwork and cultural objects, that end up eventually going out to eBay or maybe to finer auction houses and things like that. So hopefully people continue to have that desire to want to know, to want to learn. And I think technology is playing a big part in that. And I think I should stop there because that might be where we're going. But I think technology in the future is going to change the memory with objects in our work.
Questions?
So how do you think that technology will change the memory in the artwork? Yeah, keep going. Yes.
It's interesting because that's something that our team is looking at and stepping very carefully with. We're working on a digital exhibit right now, and there are so many different questions we're facing. So I can't say that I have the answer of what's going to happen, but I know our team is asking the questions about what is it appropriate to put out versus what's not appropriate to put out, or how much is okay to share, I think is one of the questions that's happening. How much of the creator is okay to put out there, because even if they've passed on, they still have family members. And so there's all this other information. So an artist who is alive may be an open book and tell you anything or everything, like this video. This is going to be here forever, right? The internet isn't going away. So I think that's something we have to really start looking at. I'm sure your performances and your pieces and education is being videotaped and is going to be out there. So I think memory in these physical objects is going to change, because we may not necessarily have the physical objects, but we're going to have all this technology that's going to hold the memory about the objects as long after physical objects may be gone.
Yeah, and I think also about it's a two-dimensional memory. And objects, it's always related to our bodies again. So I think it's very interesting. Even if we have this memory, it won't replace. Thank you. It won't replace the original object, of course, because it's bound to our bodies. And we discover the whole world through our bodies. If you look at a child when it plays, it has 8 relations to every object. Yes, it's the sound object. It balances on the body. It tastes it. It uses as a puppet. It transforms it into another object. So it really discovers something in his physicality, in his purpose, and it's all in the hands. So I think digitality can help to keep a historical point of view on it, but not the sensible point of view. Yes.
Yeah, completely. I agree. I'm quite scared of technology, and what I do, for example, I don't record my plays. Like, things easily forgotten you cannot see anywhere because it doesn't exist a recording. There are no pictures, because I don't want people to have a look before they come. And it's a small show, and if they spoil it with some images, people cannot go through that. And one day there will be no show, and there will be no images. I'm not at all worried about it, because I know so many people will have a memory like we have, and it will it has been like that for years and years. So we are just now obsessed with images and storage. And my storage, my mind really doesn't have that much space. So I think sometimes it's better not to know, so you can imagine in another way. And
And
yeah,
it's also not the same, yes. I think if I film my performance, it won't give the atmosphere or the communication I have every time with the audience. It
yes.
gives, and I think we saw this very well when we did during Corona, the filming of the performances and streaming it. It didn't work as well because film makes choices. And in the theater, the audience makes the choices, and it's an interaction. It's not a one-way thing.
And
It makes sense.
And technology is changing physical objects as well. Some of you may be aware of some of the technology I'm going to talk about, or maybe not. I don't know. But there are websites like Sketchfab where somebody can have their own landing page and you can do 3D scanning of objects and artwork and upload that so on the user end, people can take that, twist it, and turn it around. And if somebody has 3D scanned an object, whether the original object continues to live on or not, if it's been 3D scanned, it can be 3D printed. So if you think about famous sculptures and things like that, if they were to disappear, somebody can 3D print it. It wouldn't be, let's say it's a stone sculpture, it wouldn't have the same feel to it. That coldness you feel in stone sculptures. It would be like printed with like plastic. But the physicality of the shape, you would be able to touch it to feel it. So these are really interesting things to think about, and what happens if everybody puts all the eggs in the basket of technology and the technology fails us. We've seen in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of change. I remember being very small when there were the 8-tracks. Does anybody remember 8-tracks? I was really small with them. Yeah. And then the new thing was the cassette tapes, right? And then we got the floppy disks, and we eventually moved on to CD-ROMs, and now we have those little thumb drives. But also the formats the file formats have to be updated. If you have a collection of objects that are digitally stored, as in museums, and every so often, that's something they have to do. They have to make infrastructure investments to update these things.
So everything's not an 8-track in a museum.
Right.
So we're going to open it up now for questions from the audience. Oh, goodness me.
Perfect.
Come up
Yeah.
this way, better this way. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Now.
This was not what I was expecting.
It's always, yeah.
What's the object?
Good.
I like the idea of having the microphone not plugged in. Which brings us to theater. I'm reminded of so many wonderful things by this conversation, and so I have to choose one just to ask about. I'm thinking of an Italian puppeteer, Hungarian actually, but he lived in Italy. You might know Giulia Molnar. And I remember talking with Giulia years and years ago, and he said that the objects that are most interesting to him in theater, in making object theater, are the ones that are missing. He would do, and I can give you some examples of that, but I kind of like just to throw this enigmatic idea out there. He would create a show around the object that he needed but didn't have. And there would be ways that he would hint about that. And so perhaps I'll just say, could you talk about absence?
I think absence creates spaces where we can fill in with our experiences. And I think that was Julia worked a lot with the imagination of the audience, of course, and their feelings and their experiences. And so I think that's why it makes often, like puppetry, for example, very emotional, because you see only a fragment of life. Yes, you see a very reduced movement. Yes, you don't see a human fully imitation. You just see an idea of it, and your mind, your personal mind, finish this picture. So there are researches by neurologists, and they say if you have like 10 white points, it's 10 points in a black space on your body sideways, and the human who has it moves in this black space, and the other person outside just sees this 10 points, can read emotions, can see how it is. So our brain is so capable to put our experiences inside our Erfahrung, yes, experience, yes, inside, and make this picture complete. So absence gives us, as spectators, the possibility to engage.
That's really important, because when I was talking about technology, it's absence of experience with the original object, right? Where it leaves a lot to be imagined, but there's so much also that people may not think about, you know? So it's very important to have that human experience.
I think really sometimes when you get an object, what it takes you to a place that you will never be. You will never be in that place. So the absence is present in this place. I remember just, for example, one performance that we were in a place that doesn't exist anymore in Barcelona. It's where there is Montjuic. There is like the mountain with the gardens, and the botanic garden used to be before a place for favelas, full of favelas. But they moved everything around. They put the botanic garden, and there's plenty of people that go there and just go around, and they were the people that were living there. And we did a show there talking about them. And what we did, for example, because we didn't have any objects, we couldn't take anything, even there was just one tree in the right place. And what we were doing, we were drawing the houses with water, what they were telling us where they were on the floor. And because we were working with the water and it was summer, we were drawing them, and at the same time we were talking about them, they were disappearing because it was water. And we were going through the park, and we were just giving the absence presence for a second somehow. So I think there's a way to feel like the absence is present because we have this memory from this place, no, somehow. But I don't know. I think it's like a challenge, and also it's a beautiful thing to think that it's poetry. It's object theater take us much further, and we can take so many ways to talk about things that doesn't need the presence. We can have all that it's around somehow.
Any other questions?
Thank you. So writing is also part of the discussion, writing objects and memory. And so I'm wondering, I don't think you were artists, but not necessarily writers. So I'm wondering, how does writing relate to your performance and your work?
First, well, of course, it inspires the writing. For me, I produce out of the object or out of the puppet, so this is first, and the writing comes after that. But this always depends on where I'm working on. Yes. So sometimes also a poem, a writing can inspire me a lot, and then I search for something which combines that. But like for the show yesterday, there were first the objects and the puppets, and then the writing came.
Yeah, me is similar working with the objects. They they are really actually the the material where you jump and you write around. So the paper is really the space and you are part of it. And the objects take you to the places and you just keep notes somehow. And I nourish it with lots of reading during the process because there's been people that it's been writing about what I'm looking for in some way that they can give me lots of clues. But I need the objects to take me to places that are unexpected. But then after, I need also a lot of, uh, uh, well, work that it's been done before.
I think for me, my experience with writing is very different because I do so much that is hands-on and so much connecting to the past and the present at the same time. Much of the writing I do is either academic or labels for exhibits and things, or maybe it's for presentations or papers to be published and things like that. But for me, I think what I love most is before any of that, I love that brainstorming. You know, maybe I'm sitting just inside my own head thinking about things or with a friend and just kind of mind mapping and free flow association, you know, just to kind of get everything on paper. And then you can always come back to it, you know, 20 years later, 10 years, because I have so many ideas for these creative projects that I don't have time for right now. So for me, it's about getting it on paper. Sometimes it's just drawing it out. Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that question regarding writing, about how each of you might define the idea or act of writing personally, not necessarily as the written word, but as we move into new and evolving forms of technology, could writing not also be coding, to write code? Or Sabi, with your workshop this morning, excuse me, you talked about creating a sentence, but it was in terms of action and object. And it also leads me to believe about the idea of rewriting memory, about how we emotionally feel towards something we think we remember and how that changes over time. So I'm curious how each of you might define writing in an abstract sense as it relates to the work that you're doing.
So you mean writing as a process to keep something in a memory?
Yes.
I think related to our work, the way we write is to keep on moving and to keep things busy in a way that remind you where they come from and where you are going on. So you are just having the opportunity to what you were saying, to have a kind of brainstorming while you are reconnecting with what's going on, because it's what we said. For example, language is full of movement because the verbs are full of actions, and we just hold things that have a noun. So what we have to do in some way when we are working with objects is just to give the opportunity to them to happen. So we need time, and this is what I always say. I'm working with the time. I am obsessed with it. I need to hold it and to place it in a place. And because I have something between my hands, I can feel it, because I cannot go too quick because it will vanish. So time helps me to order my ideas because I have things between my hands And in my body, if I move around a place and I set my things around, this will help me to classify what I am imagining. And then little by little, these things that are all around will become autonomous. I will be there and I will be trying to remember where they come from, but also I will be listening to them. So for me, it's an opportunity. Listening, it's a kind of memory, because if I don't listen, I forget. And usually it happens in life. You are listening to somebody, but you are not there. So how would you keep the tension for that?
Like that, we often say listening to the material or the puppet, because they will tell you the story which is within them. And they tell it through movement or through their shape or through their, yeah. Yes. When I think about memory, and if I look at my show, it has a lot of different layers of writing. There's the body movement, like my body memory, which is there, which reminds my movements. And then there's the script, which writes all these movements down. And then there's the language. And then there's the sculpture, which also like has the memory inside. I wouldn't, and then of course there's the programming there, like the codes, but I wouldn't define them all as writing. Yeah.
When I think of your question, what stood out to me was writing and coding. And not all people would agree with me on what I consider to be writing. So sometimes when I'm writing, it's not with words on paper. Sometimes it might be with my cell phone because my hands are occupied doing other things, leaving myself notes as modern technology, but also in weaving. You know, you can weave your ideas and your thoughts into textiles, and it's a type of writing. When we look at all of these paintings around the room, they're physical representations of something that's inside somebody's head that they did. They engaged their brain with an idea that went down to their hand, that went down to canvas or paper. But you can also weave the ideas into something you're doing. And there are a lot of different art forms where people weave their intentions and their ideas, whether it be actual weaving, it could be painting, it could be even with beadwork, where they're encoding those ideas into the artwork. So I think when we think about artwork and writing, it's very broad. It can be very technical writing, it can be very creative writing, or it can be a type of coding maybe other people wouldn't understand.
Yeah. And is it writing or is it more the expression? How I put, which tool I find to express myself.
Is there any writing that has inspired your work or inspired your journey?
Yes. No.
You sort of which one?
No. Well, I don't know, but I keep on reading, and I just move from one place to another with some books that I need them very close. Well, for example, I've been telling this morning about Juhani Payasma. It's an architect that I've been reading these last years. And he writes and explains himself in a way that I just try to keep it like a Bible. Like sometimes, like now, where I am living, in years ago it was Margarillos and art. It opened my mind in a way that I could feel the meaning of having a gesture that had something to do with it, because I learned from that capacity of being complete, having the contemplative way of watching what's the story and what can give you. And here in America, I like a lot Paul Auster, really, all his essays and biography, what he writes about Winter Journal, things that he's been researching. So for me,
it's a poem. I love poems and the emotional things they they transport, because I think it's very similar to puppetry, what we do. Like we compromise in not compromise, we compress. We take an emotion or a state and we put it in one scene or in one puppet. And so often it responds to me in a very emotional way, and then I can see which character can come out of there. So.
I would agree about poetry. And it doesn't take much. It can just be one line that just stays with me, and that can be like the catalyst for an entire piece of work. I can't think of any particular quote off the top of my head, but I just know that's how the process works for me.
I have one. That's a very nice one, I think. It's in German, but I try to translate it. Don't get tired. Always hold your hand open to the wonder. So, nicht müde werden, sondern genau auf Deutsch nicht müde werden, sondern dem Wunder die Hand hinhalten.
Anyone else have a question?
Hello. I don't know if it actually works, but imagination. Right. Oh, I see. I think my question was, what was it? I was trying to formulate it. In terms of technology, technology advancing the way we consume media now, mostly on technology, the way people consume maybe a puppet show or in general, and also the way consume and remember, and the way that maybe how technology has changed has maybe informed or changed your own memories as artists. Yeah, I'm curious about the artist and just the audience side. If yeah, maybe I don't know if it's harder to remember things now for some people, or that's just the same, or the way we're exposed to rapid fire information. Yeah, I wonder if that has any effect on the way you guys have used your memories to inform your art, or you've experienced with people who have seen it. Yeah, if anything that speaks to that came to you.
I think for me, yes. I mean, there's so many pictures out there, much more than before. And you can use them as a resource. And this can be very positive. And they can be also overwhelming. So I think it gives a lot of responsibility to you as an artist or as a person what to choose and not to get overwhelmed by the amount of pictures. But I also think it's a big chance. And what I see with my kids, when they see the pictures, because it's so close, there are so many, they remember very early events because they see the picture and then it's connected to us because we tell the stories. So it's not only the picture, but the emotion and story which is connected with this picture. So their memories start much earlier than my memories because we tell so much stories when we look through the pictures. So that's not the picture alone, it's not the technology alone, but in combination as a little reminder, I think it can be very nice and create very deep or long memories.
I think technology is not helping that much for me in my work. I can feel it in my work, in myself, that I have less patience, and I have to fight with it. I would like to be more passionate with my work. I would like to spend longer time without distracting myself with the phone or with things. So I have a little battle in myself. And also what I've seen with the audience is that if you give them another timing, they get really nervous. And for some of them, fall asleep. So it's nice.
Some of them what?
Fall asleep. So I think people get so relaxed that they start getting a kind of is what they've experienced. I just say kind of, well, to share it, but what happened to me is that I cannot afford so much information, and I don't need it because really I cannot hold it for so much. And when I am sharing with people my work, I need another timing, and sometimes it's happening that it's a kind of difficult to keep this attention.
I would agree with art and memory work that I do, that the consumer, on the consumer end, there's not the same patience. It used to be that you could sit and a storyteller or a performer could talk or do their performance for an extended period of time and have the attention of the audience. Since everybody went remote a number of years ago, and with the advent of the 1 minute video, I've noticed, and the swipe to get rid of the content you don't want, I've noticed that attention span has changed drastically because I work with people of many different ages, from very young people right on through. And I've noticed a decline in attention span, I think, is one of the biggest things. And that affects the work that I do, because now if you want to get the same effect that you once had, how do you do that? Very often people will say, oh, that's an important story. Tell it in 5 minutes. What? And how does the integrity of the art hold up to the watching the time? You mentioned earlier time can be valuable, in the creation and everything, but sometimes the time can be detrimental to art and memory work. And how do we change that? I think we're doing great. I just want to say thank you to everybody here in the audience, because you're all holding in with us.
It's terrific to know.
It's really rewarding to see that everybody's holding in with us.
No one is filming. Well, also with technology, like my last production wouldn't have happened without all the pictures. There's a community out there in the internet which shares a lot, and I work all this robotic stuff. If they wouldn't have shared, I couldn't learn it so easily. So again, I am a little bit afraid to say this is all bad. It just gives you as a consumer a big responsibility how you act with it. Yes, so it's not to let you get overswept or overwhelmed, but to use it. And it's amazing to see how the people share. So and for free, they just want to share. So it's also a platform for communication and relation and exchange in another level.
So we think about the technology. It's almost like a bag of jelly beans. You have your favorite flavor in there, and then there are some you don't like so much. That's what just came. I just got this visual that I had to share. I love technology. Just sometimes I worry about technology too.
I wanted to ask a question. You were talking about listening at processed objects. And I'm really interested, I think on one level with technology, objects are becoming beings that have their own memories. I think that's maybe where the future is going. But I'm more curious with that aside of how objects have their own memories that are independent of the memories that we give them. It feels like there's been a lot of talk about the memories we put into objects and that they hold those memories. But I'm actually curious in your work, do the objects have agency? Do they have their own memories that you're not professed with, that aren't one of your own.
And just to prep you guys, we have about 5 more minutes.
Uh, yeah, I think listening objects and rescuing these memories, it's really difficult. It's really a challenge. I will not say I got it because I'm not a magician that can. What I can try is to do the work of a interpreter, like if I have a notebook like the one of Heidi, things easily forgotten, that it's full of notes and writing. I just try to understand it, and I just place it in where it belongs to. And then, for example, for this show, what I did is that I invited a lot of people to see the process that could have been experiencing that notebook before, so old people. And so they could bring these memories alive. The notebook arrived where it arrived. So people were telling me, oh, this reminds me, oh, this I could. So finally, I was trying to look for answers where I could get them. So the listening comes to me from the object, but also where the object takes me. And sometimes it's inspiration, it's something that you are making up things, but also they take you to a place that it's real.
It's the observation first also, like if it has bumps, how it smells, how it weighs. It's all this in there, and I think this is the story of the objects themselves. It's the physical manifestation, and then my task is to observe, and then to listen, and then comes the step of interpretation and where to put it.
I would agree, and time is a big part of that. Sometimes it's not obvious what the memory is, and what you were both saying about interpretation, sometimes you just have to sit there with the object, and as was already said, observe and listen, and use all of your senses with it, and be very patient. And hopefully it tells you what it needs to tell you. If not, you sit with it longer.
Or you ask technology.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you all for coming. That is the end of our panel.
Great, thank you so much, Alex. So just a reminder that there's 2 more panels that will be next weekend on Saturday and Sunday, both at 12:30. Thank you. And also will be streamed through HowlRound. This whole festival we're kind of in this panel is the start place, and we're going to keep building, and hopefully these conversations continue throughout, just over dinner, whatever, around the relationship between new evolving technologies and our more organic knowledge or our intuitive knowledge, and how these things relate through puppet theater, and also our wonderful community members that are doing work here in our own communities. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone out at home.
And I liked both of you. Also, the viewpoint of view you can